let me ask you, because now you're on the committee. Uh, what's the most important thing you have found, or the most important modifications or things that you need to be sensitive to when you lead or organize a minion for a shiva?
A lot of it is the family, right? So what does the family expect to have people at their house for the minion? Do they have, if we're doing a Zoom minion or a combination in-person Zoom minion, do they have the capability? Do they have a Zoom device, a PC, a laptop, tablet, whatever? How knowledgeable are they? Um, because some people recognize that they should be covering their mirrors and they should not be doing anything. They should have the box there, so they shouldn't be making themselves comfortable. That other people should be doing the work, whatever the work is. Some people know that, some people don't know that, some people expect it, some people are surprised when they hear other people try to help out and
Mm-hmm.
tell them, sit down, you're not supposed to be doing that,
Now,
right?
David, do you do this through the auspices of the synagogue as a general member or member of the ritual committee, or through the men's club?
It's really not the men's club. It's more, I guess, an extension of the ritual committee.
Mm-hmm. I think
Okay.
Sandy and I think act like that way too. We've both over the last 30 years been vice presidents of ritual for our shows, but we're also, when we're not being officers of the show, we're officers of our men's club. And so our men's club is very much engaged in all the ritual stuff in the show. So we're lucky like that. Now,
So,
what do you
so
find to be the biggest problem you might face in trying to do this mitzvah?
I guess that the biggest problem is getting people to be part of the minion. For example, this is kind of coincidental, I guess, that somebody in the congregation just passed away last night. However, they live about a 30-minute drive from the temple. So if we're going to get a minion to go to their house, it's like pulling teeth, right? A lot of people don't live close, and they don't want to drive 30 minutes, and it's cold out, and everybody comes up with excuses.
Hmm.
Um,
Norm, let me
so
ask you this in relation to what David's saying. Do you think, whether you're participating or being asked to lead a minion, either as a member of the men's club or part of the ritual committee of your show, that it's your duty to get the people there? What do
Assuming the family doesn't sit there and say, we've got, 12 neighbors that are welcome, they're living in, within 3 doors and they're going to be there.
yeah, and that's always my first question is how many people are going to be there that are of the Jewish faith? Because sometimes they just have friends come over that
right.
aren't Jewish.
Yeah.
And if it is the day of the funeral, odds are they're going to have a house full, right? It's not going to be a problem. But as if you have 7 days of Shiva,
Sure.
it gets harder and harder as time goes on.
What about, and Norm, you can chime in anytime
Sure.
on any of this. What do you think about what David said about how do you have you run minions? Are you involved in this? Or are you just dipping your toe in right now?
Okay, well, I am currently the president of Temple Israel's congregation in Norfolk, Virginia.
Okay.
We've been when COVID started, we started doing Zoom Shiva Minions. And the families, it was usually the first night would be on Zoom. And I mean, we'd have like 50 or 60 people. There are some families that are doing now Shiva Minions at their house. And our rabbi will go to one, and usually our gabbai will go and run a minion. What I do at Temple Israel beside president, I'm on the men's Chevra Kadisha, and we also do Shomrim for
Mhm.
all of our members who pass away. The people have a choice. They can either go to the funeral home and sit with the body, if they don't feel comfortable because of still COVID lingering on, they can read Psalms at home. But we have not had any instances where we did not do a Shiva Minyan on Zoom. And if there is a Minyan in the actual house of the deceased or stay at their children, they've had 20, 25 people there. I mean, we've not had an issue that I ever know of that we didn't have enough people for a Shiva Minyan, whether it was in person or on Zoom. But COVID has just flipped everything over, as you all know.
Yeah.
It's very interesting because Sandy and I were very conscious when Rabbi what was her name? She gave the keynote at one of the
Virtual convention.
Also, I keep drawing a blank.
I have to look it
Browse,
up.
Sharon Browse, who's very progressive generally and has this wonderfully large shul out in Los Angeles. You know,
Right.
God hope that they're all okay. But Rabbi Browse was talking about there's a difference in what happens at a physically present Shiva and a Zoom Shiva and what's happening. Now, if we were doing our whole seminar and Sandy was putting up our item, the first question I was asking is, who is this Shiva for and where does it come from? And if you were cognizant of the history of Shivas, you'd find out that these Shiva Minyanim, even the mourner's Kaddish in and of itself, is not rabbi induced.
Right.
They dragged the rabbis by their short hairs into allowing people to do these isolated minyanim and doing what is essentially ancestor worship and keening for dead people. And they've used this item, and I would have told the story about the son who's having bad dreams and how he meets Akiba. I don't know if you know that story. I'm not going to go through it right now because if we have to do this again, I'll tell the whole story. But the idea is, what's happening here and why are we doing this? Because David, you said something about they should be covering their mirrors and they should be doing this and they should be doing that. The truth of the matter is that the minhagim in different communities being done a certain way have evolved into what's called halachot, but they're not halachot. They're only halachot because they're done so much that the rabbi said, okay, we're going to do it like this. But myself and Sandy and Norm Kurtz, who was going to be on this, are really of a different opinion that this is really a minyan of comfort. No matter what we do, the purpose of it is never to fail at a minyan of comfort. Never fail at a minyan of comfort. What does that mean, do you think?
I would think that would be the family of the deceased, that they feel comfortable no matter what happens, that you give words of comfort to them. If they requested a minyan, that you try to make sure that there's a minyan present. And if
is there an option?
Right. And I was just going to say, if there isn't, then I've seen all different options. I've seen where you might read a psalm together with them. The siddur that we use, at least that we used to use, has a bunch of sections within the siddur written in English to explain what Shiva is about and what the mourning period is about, and just even to sit down with them and go through that.
Good. I like that answer, Dave. What about you, Norm?
I have been to some Shiva Minyans where it has become more of a social event than a praying session. Most of the time, and I don't just necessarily mean my temple, but just in general, that many times the rabbis have had to ask the people to, step away because they turn it into a social event. They haven't seen you in X number of months. But most of the minions that I've attended for Shiva, the families are very compassionate. They're so happy. They're most of the time they're sitting on the sofa. They're cuddled together, and they're appreciative to have families and friends there to get them through the 7 days. Most people now, I think they do a Shiva Minyan the night of the funeral and maybe one more day, and then they either don't do it or they go to the temple, for services. But I think the Shiva Minyans is a time for the families to be comforted. They just buried their loved one, and this gives them a time to keep their mind off of the fact that they just buried their relative, and they have people there with them and praying with them.
Yeah, I agree with you. And Steve, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, in some ways, the Shiva Minyan is more for the sociological impact of the family rather than a religious service. I mean, it kind of has that form to it, but the main purpose people come to it is to comfort the family.
Right.
Exactly right. From my point of view, I'm not a rabbi. I've been doing these different portfolios with the men's club for the last 25 years, the men's club Shabbat and the worldwide rap, and now the Minyan of Comfort. We do this. I have my own point of view on this, and it's that the main point for the purpose of men's club is not to be the posek, not to be the one that's going to do the law. We're there as a member of the community to make people feel better, to let them know that the community cares about them, that their shul cares about them, that that people care about them. Because we're going to run into issues like, we don't care that you're from the shul or the men's club. Uncle Ned wants to do minyan, and he's going to buzz through it. And if there's somebody from the family that's going to do it, they're going to do it. If this particular family feels comfortable with counting women, then they'll count women. But if they are not comfortable with counting women, they won't have 10. Maybe you need to be able to make suggestions to still comfort them. Now, their comfort may come from the fact that they're holding themselves up to a ritual standard, and they cannot do the minyan because they don't have 10 adult men. Well, that's, again, not going to be our choice. The idea then for us as men's club members, as opposed to being a ritual chair of the shul or a clergy of the shul, is to do next what can comfort people. Because I want you to think, because that's going to be the most important thing we can take out of this minyan, is not how you set up a minyan, but it's going to be how you deal with things that are not expected. Not having 10, having 10, but not all 10 men. Are you going to use and allow Zoom, or is that just going to be extra? If you don't have a minyan there, are you going to allow yourself to count people on Zoom when you get there? Does that mean you have to see them or not see them if you're going to be doing halakhic things? The question at the bottom line is we're saying that we have to have a minyan for the purpose of allowing the mourners to say the Kaddish.
If I could just say one quick thing about
Yes,
the
please.
Minyan of Comfort,
Huh?
which is mostly or just as important as what goes on during the actual service, is everything before,
Right.
everything you do beforehand and everything you do after. And what you're 100% on point of all these little things that no one thinks of. So
And I just want to add one little thing, and this is something that Norm Kurtz was going to be on this too, and Norm and I have, and Sandy are all in the same shul, and so they know how I feel about it, and it's because a minyan for Shiva is a, let's say, and I'm not saying this derogatorily, but it's a made up thing. It comes from a place that isn't halacha and has been made into halacha. And so that the rules from community to community can become contentious, even whether it's mirrors or whether who's counting. And the focus of it seems to be that we want to be able to do a mitzvah in public. And the mitzvah that's being chosen in this context is declaring the name of God as holy in public. And the way that it's developed over the last couple thousand years is to understand that you need to have a minyan because of various verses that I'm not going to go into right now. But let me ask you this. Can it ever be improper to declare the glory of God, whether you have 10 people around or not? Can it ever be improper?
No.
The answer has to be no. Anybody who answers yes better be ready to argue that it's an avera to declare God's name in the open without 10 people. Somehow that would be an offense. Once we can get past that point and understand that a mitzvah of, it may not be that mitzvah, you might not get the brownie patch for declaring God's name as holy in public among 10 adult males, but you sure can comfort the people that are there to allow them to express that they're part of the tradition and they want to be part of the tradition, and to say, I'd like to have done it the other way, but without a minyan, I still want to declare the glory of God.
Oren,
yeah, go ahead.
Are you aware, I assume you probably are, in the new Lev Shalem, in one of the sides of the page has an alternative
Exactly
Mourner's
right.
Kaddish to say when you don't have a full minyan.
Yes.
And it
Exactly
basically,
right.
the whole thing is like, I wish we could say the whole thing, but we can't, but we're going to say this, but we're really bummed that we can't say the whole thing, but we'll do this. And this is what we can do.
Yeah,
And
we do
these are
that.
the
Really
options,
nicely
just
written.
like
I've seen
Norma
other
said.
ones.
These
That
are the
effect.
options we're looking for.
We do that at our shul when we don't have a minyan, either just a regular service or a Shiva Minyan.
What's the most important thing
we
then
still
to
say
do?
we tried. Give us a little credit for trying.
A for effort, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's the most important thing to bring to let's now call it a potential minyan, but at least a gathering of comfort? What's the most important thing for any one of us to bring, assuming we've been trained in leading minyans? What's the most important thing?
That's a really hard question.
Well, you can have different answers.
The answer is comfort to a large extent. But I mean, having, and I can remember the first time I led a Shiva Minyan. I had no business leading it. It was for my mother-in-law. But I was the most learned person there that could even remotely handle it. And it was literally the first time I'd ever led a minyan. I had not been through any training. I had just been a bunch of times, and I did the best I could. And I was given my mother-in-law's level of observance. It was more than she would have. I mean, I think she would be thrilled with it. And then when her brother, who's very Orthodox, showed up the next day, he was on it, perfect. But since then, I have gone through all this and learned it and led many, 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 many Shiva Minyanim. And to me, the most important thing is to make the family feel that they're a part of it and that you're honoring their deceased and that you're helping them to do maybe something. It's a little bit, to me, it's almost like a circumcision where, if you can't, cut yourself or make the cut yourself, I should say, you empower somebody to do it for you. And it's sort of the same thing, is that you're empowered to help these people to pray, to feel whatever, to be comforted, to find the solace in the Kaddish, etc., that they were supposed to find.
Right. Now,
And that is the purpose of the FJMC's Minyan of Comfort program, is to help you, if you want to lead a minyan, either lead the service itself or lead the organization of the service, and what it takes to comfort the family. So you do that properly and not feel funny about it.
This
I'm gonna
day, I
share
still have
something
that.
right now. Can you
I
guys
still
see
have
what
that-
I'm sharing?
Yes.
Okay, this was written by Cantor Store, and there's an entire booklet that goes through what Rabbi Store had put together that is very much the operating manual that we suggest for FJMC people. If you're interested, we have a whole bunch of these different websites you can do. For example, if you know who Bob Braitman was, a past president of International FJMC, he did an entire seminar, which is in YouTube, and I can send you that link. I don't want to bombard anybody with links that doesn't want them. But Sandy, why don't you give your email and I'll give my email. And if you're interested, you can, I'll send you copies of these things and you can take a look and we can discuss them. But we have that one that you're seeing there. I'm going to show you another one. I'm going to stop this one and share another one. And
There are a tremendous number of them on the FJMC website also.
Yeah, so this is the one that is in YouTube, which is Bob Braitman on a seminar like this, going through it in great detail. His PowerPoint was much more detailed than mine. It was as if you couldn't hear him. He wrote it out. So it's very good. This is something we can send over to you. There's a program that was started well before Sandy and I were involved with actually having classes and certifying people with a certificate. And I'm going to show you that.
I got one.
It's still there.
Yeah, it's here.
If you
I'm gonna
want to do
find
it.
here it is. And we can, and if you wanted to do that, you could do that. How they sign up, the things that they do. Let's see if I can, I'm gonna make it bigger so you can, there's letters you can send. There's,
And it was done in conjunction with the Cantors Assembly. So if you're going
look
to,
at this. You can, if you want to certify people, I mean, cool.
but it was also done with the CA, so that if you were trying to lead a minyan, you're hopefully using the right tunes and stuff like that.
Right. So when I was asking before, what's the most important thing you can do? It was very interesting. What Creighton said was, you do what you can do. As leaders, your job is to know what to do and know what options are. That's how you bring comfort for people to not feel like they're having to make last minute decisions. You need to ask the right questions. For example, is there anybody in your family that wants to lead minyan? I'm happy to step aside or to assist rather than lead. And maybe they'll introduce you to other people that are there. Mostly they'll say, no, you do it. I hate Uncle Sid.
Yep.
That can happen. Here's another question. Do you want parts of the service to be in English?
Yeah, it's important.
Very
It's
important.
Do you want most of it in
And
English?
then you have to
Or
know
all
which
English.
parts you want to do. Hashki Venu, for example, is a wonderful one to read in English. The Shema, the Ve'ahavta is not the whole thing, but the Ve'ahavta part is very important because people know that one. They know the rhythm. To do things like the melodies that people know, even if they don't know the prayer, Oseh Shalom at the end, but not rousing, but do it in some way that's appropriate.
Oren?
Yeah, go
I think,
ahead.
Marvin, do you have a question?
Yeah.
Sure, Marvin.
I've lived Minyanim for over 25 years.
Yeah, a little louder, Marvin.
Yeah, I've led Minyanim for over 25 years in the services, and I always try to speak to the mourners and their families saying, do you want a lot of Hebrew? Do you want a little Hebrew? Do you want more English? Who wants to participate? And I try to always have one or two people, either the family or their friends, to lead one of the prayers responsively. And at the end of the service, also, I say, well, can we talk about any Shiva practices? Anyone have any questions? I'm not a rabbi, but I know enough to answer most questions. And people like to hang around, and there's always food and drink. Sometimes it gets rather excessive. It gets overblown with sweets.
I'm
I only maybe once in all these times that we didn't have a minyan, and we still did a service, and that's all. We did what we could. We made a few calls. At this family did not live in a Jewish area really, and we took care of it. That's all. They were satisfied. I did what I could.
So yeah, so we're finding out who's going to lead. If you're there, just let them know you're there from the shul. They might not know you. They may never have met you, but let them know you're there. I'm from Beth Judea. I'm from Temple Israel. I'm from this. We're here to help however we can. We're prepared to lead. And if you have someone you'd like to do it. Number two, how much English are you comfortable with? Always make sure you have the English name and the Hebrew name of the person. Why? Because you want to intersperse the service with their name. It makes it personal to them. All right. If you know the mourners' names, that's great. But do know the name of the deceased. And if you can, get their Hebrew name. And if possible, get their nickname. It makes it personal. And the reason is, I'm going to tell you a story now that I tell at Minyanim. And it has to go back to what I told you about the origins. This is mythology. This is midrash. And the midrash I do is I tell this right after the Aleinu. Right after the Aleinu, I'm usually facing away from the group during the service, listening, trying to catch what's going on. But you also sometimes want to watch and see if people are infirm or they can't stand, and tell them they can sit down. You want to tell them they can sit down. The rules that make things difficult are rules you should reject. This is me talking, not the rabbi. Whatever rules, whether they're mirrors, oh my God, you didn't cover your mirror? Forget that one. Forget, those aren't why you're there. You're there for the comfort part. So when the Aleinu is finished, I turn around and say, we're now coming to a part of the service, which is called the Mourner's Kaddish. This is not a prayer of sadness. This is a prayer of declaration. And why is it so important? It's important because of what it allows us all to do. And it developed from a story of a man who was having nightmares after his father died. And this was a long time ago. It was at the time of Rabbi Akiva, allegedly. And the man went to Rabbi Akiva and said, Rabbi, I'm having nightmares. I don't know what to do. My father died. I cannot go to sleep. I don't know what to do. Rabbi Akiva says, what's happening, Shmuel, is that your father is before the heavenly court. And the heavenly court is debating whether or not he should be allowed into heaven, how long he should be in Sheol. And the man says, that's exactly why I can't sleep. What can I do, Rabbi? He says, what you need to do is show the heavenly court that your father raised a son who respects Torah and does mitzvot. And the easiest thing to do, easiest mitzvah to accomplish is to declare the name of God in public. And so we have developed this tradition that the mourners will try to influence the heavenly court as to the yuchas of the deceased. And then I go on to say, and this is important, and you know the name of this deceased here is Irv, for instance. We say, now I'm sure Irv doesn't need our help. Okay, so you bring but for the sake of tradition, not for the sake of being sad, not for the sake, you see how the rhetoric goes here? I'm sure Irv doesn't need our help.
Just in case.
But for the sake of tradition, let's do this mitzvah and let's let our mourners lead us. And then we go on. So you've taken it, you've separated this reason. You were going to have a minyan anyway. You could have a minyan, but this is their minyan and this is why they're doing it. If you can develop something and then after that, you can say to them, if it's a wife or it's a father, something, can you tell us something special that we might not know about your dad? And they're going to want to tell you. And that's because they're there. If they didn't want to honor their dad, they wouldn't be there. So it's an easy question. And then you can say, anybody else? This is because people may or may not have been to the funeral. They may have just come here. They just may want even people to know that they're there at the Shiva. You know, some people like to step up just to make sure people know that they're there. Well, you know, this is a minyan of comfort for them too, not just for the mourners. So if we give an opportunity in this ending portion of the service for people to do a mitzvah and to do homage to the family, then we've gone one step further that we can do that isn't bound by halacha, which members of the men's club, not as rabbis, but just as mensches, can help out with. Now, is there something
Oren,
you
can I
guys
interrupt quickly?
like that?
Because I would stress what Oren says is absolutely perfect, appropriate. But as we were saying a few minutes ago, as Oren and Sandy said, check with the family first, because the last thing you want to do is put a bunch of families in mourning on the spot and they're not prepared, or maybe Uncle Irv wasn't anybody's favorite or whatever, and they don't have anything to say. So don't put them in a point where they're going to be embarrassed. Anybody have anything good to say about Uncle Irv? Nope. Oh, well.
Yeah.
Don't ask the question, right?
Is there anybody that you just say, is there anybody that wants to share? Not anybody. You ask the mourner. And
right. Check with the mourners before you do it. But yeah.
Tell the mourners, you'll ask that question because maybe they'll be thinking about that the whole time. And if they're thinking about the good things that they can say at the end, which isn't at a funeral, you know, then
you don't want to turn it
they're
into
going to be feeling better about the whole thing. Because if it's just a bunch of Hebrew and it sounds to them like dog noise, you've not done anything except they've checked the box, they were there. But if you can make them invest, then particularly with surrounded only usually in a small room, you've already checked to see which way is east. You know what the thing is. You know the candle's lit. Touch them on the shoulder. Use the deceased's name. Sing the melodies that they know. But if you're going to lead a Marav, know the Nusach, the Marav, at least in your community. Now, your community might use the Mincha melody at Marav. I mean, Nusach is also not what I bow down to is halacha. These are
Oren
that are comfort.
For those of you that don't know, Nusach refers to essentially the melody, the tunes that you're
the
using.
melody.
Yeah.
The
and there are different tunes that are set, for different prayers are said with different melodies at different services and different times of the year. And if you only know one, you do one.
Yeah. Now, something else that you can do besides this story of Akiba that Yeah, that you can find that on the internet, and there's 10 different variations of it, as you can imagine. Is sometimes people just want to get out of there. You know, you gotta read the room. Not done and done. We want to get back to our food. We're putting up enough with this juice stuff. Sandy and I have been to Minyanim, where it's a mixed family. And we were one, this was about 10 years ago, the Hoffman, a baby died. And it was a mixed, it was a mixed marriage. And more than half of the people at the quote unquote Shiva were not Jewish. And the people's household, they said, we don't want a full service. Do a psalm. Let us do something that we can do, but we're not going to subject our greater family to this, essentially this hocus pocus. I mean, you're going to run into stuff doing minions. What other kinds of things might you run into, or how have you creatively handled some of these things? Particularly you who have done these over the years. Anybody?
I have a comment. For many years in our shul,
A little louder, Marvin.
okay, I'm sorry. For many years in our shul, we did the Aleinu in the traditional, like, weekday or Shabbat melody, Nusaf. And then we had a rabbi who was very strict. No, you can't do that. You must just read the Aleinu, no melody. But people used to like the melody. It took a long time to read it. It doesn't feel right if you're used to chanting it. But now everyone does the reading, but it was a big adjustment.
Well, yeah, that's a matter of dealing with your rabbi, and I'm not ever going to suggest that you should take what I'm saying here and make it and necessarily make it part of that, but it should be part of the conversation. And if the rabbi is a rabbi that says my way or the highway, well,
that's what we do.
Time for a new show.
You still can talk. You still can talk to the person at a time and say, the rabbi wants it done like this. Okay.
How would you want it done?
How do you want it done? If you're leading and the rabbi ain't there, how do you want it done?
Yeah, exactly. You're in charge.
You know,
more or less.
Now, is it what about encouraging someone? You know, what are minions nowadays? Minions go on, Shiva goes on as long until a Sunday. That's it. No one goes from a Sunday to a Monday anymore. Doesn't matter when the person died or when you start. Is it your job to suggest that they go 7 days?
No.
Does it make a difference?
They're not going to listen to you on that one anyway.
Right. Does it make a difference whether you're there on the first day, second day, third day, or last day? Which any one of those could be the same.
No, I don't see any difference. We often will announce who the next leader will be the following night. We repeat the time or the starting time for the minyan and ask any questions.
Okay. What if it is the last day and you happen to be doing the minyan?
No, then we collect the books. we take out the books with us when we leave, and we wish the mourners that
you may, Marvin, want to have an ending piece that's special for the last day of a minyan. I know many of the rabbis that I've had to deal with over the years like to talk about a tradition. Is it Jewish? I don't know if it's Jewish. You know, like Musar was probably invented by Benjamin Franklin. You know, so it's a matter of mindfulness and comfort again. This is your last day of minyan. Tomorrow morning, go together and take a walk. Look what God has provided to us, and we're here. We certainly don't have everything that we wanted to do. In fact, sometimes I talk about the Bruce Springsteen song from one of his albums where he says, everything is everything, but you're missing. And, you know, you could not everything has to be a Jewish source that you talk about. Try to plug into what you think is the method that will touch at least one person directly. then that might be the only thing you can do at that point. But at the end of the minyan, say, thank you for allowing me to help you. I know some of you are in pain, and the only thing I can do as a member of your community is try to help. Let them know what resources are available. So you have that. Anybody have any questions right now that, I mean, we're here. So if anybody has a question or something they has to do with this that they want to talk about right now, I'm here, so I'm happy to talk to you. No, I think we're good then.
And
Once again,
we'll-
thank you all for being here.